I'm Jason Lupo, sitting here with my co-host Aaron Lujan.
Hi, everybody.
And joining us today, just a guy, Jim Miller.
Hello, hello.
And today we've got a fun show planned for you, a review of the latest news of the week from a biblical worldview lens. We're going to start with this one. This is a very interesting story. GOP talks on millionaire tax hike come from party's populist streak, strategist says. This is an article on foxnews.com by Elizabeth Elkind and Deirdre Heavey. It says, and I quote, "An aversion to tax increases has long been one of the Republican Party's core pillars, but tradition was upended in recent weeks as discussions of a potential new millionaire's tax hike hit Capitol Hill. It's baffled some members of the GOP's old guard, though Republican operatives who spoke with Fox News Digital were less surprised. They said those conversations were largely ushered in by the party's growing populist wing. I'm not sure if I'm surprised anymore because the party has changed so much in just a short period of time. But it is noteworthy," long-term GOP strategist Doug Hay told Fox News Digital. Hay recalled his time as a senior House leadership aide in 2012 when a Republican proposal for a uniform tax rate for people making under $1 million per year was blown up by a rebellion within our own ranks over raising taxes. "It all exploded in our faces," he said, "and now this is what more and more of those Republicans who rejected the idea in 2012 want to do." Sources told Fox News Digital this month that the White House was socializing a plan among Republicans to create a new 40% tax bracket for people making more than $1 million. Various reported plans floated among House Republicans, including raising taxes on the ultra-wealthy to rates between 38 and 40%. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich has been seeking to quash that this week, even posting a purported message from President Donald Trump himself on X that said, "If you can do without it, you're probably better off trying to do so." Fox News Digital reached out to the White House on Wednesday morning for comment on Gingrich's note, including the context of the message and why Trump described that he would love increasing taxes, but did not receive a reply. Top income tax rate is currently about 37% on $609,000 in earnings for a single person, or $731,201 for married couples. It was lowered from just over 39% by Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. This is a departure from what the Republican Party has long been about, which is do not increase taxes. The Reagan economic principle of trickle-down economics is being lost in this shuffle and in this quest for popularism, and Trump is taking, and it looks like a large chunk of the Republican Party, taking a popularist stance that the wealthy should be taxed more, whereas long-held economic beliefs by the Republicans would say that if you cut taxes of the ultra-rich, that money ends up trickling down to the lower income brackets and strengthening American economics and the everyday household income. Aaron.
Forgive me if I'm derailing the conversation right out the gate, but I don't want to have a conversation about taxes when our federal government is illegitimate. They're not doing their job. They're stripping liberties away. Let's abolish all taxes until they come to the table, because we don't negotiate with terrorists. The federal government should be designated a international terrorist organization at this point. So that's number one. They're not deserving of any tax revenue. We have an illegitimate federal government. I know that may sound hyperbolic, but when you're sending weapons to genocide innocent Palestinians, when you're leaving the border open and allowing open market sex trafficking in the country, like, I don't want to talk about how much or how little I'm going to give you. How about we just start off with, we're not going to give you another penny. I mean, this whole country is cooked. Secondly, I don't want to have a conversation about taxes until we talk about rescinding corporate welfare for who are truly the ultra wealthy. So those people that are at the highest levels, I'm talking about the internationalists, I'm talking about the corporate class, I'm talking about the billionaire class. They don't pay taxes at all. So until we can rescind corporate welfare and rescind all of these loopholes for people that are making, north of, 300 million or whatever that number may end up being at, that's just, It's not a productive conversation. Now, if I'm going to come back home and pretend that I'm not as extreme as I actually think I am, to answer Jason's question, I think it's important to define what is wealthy, what is middle class, because when you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did I hear you say 36% effective tax rate for people making under $1 million? Is that what we have in this country right now?
I don't believe that statement is accurate. However, I do not have that data in front of me.
Well,
The present top income tax rate is currently 37%
That's
on
federally.
609,000. Yeah, that's
so if I'm making
federal.
609,000, my effective federal income tax rate is almost 40%.
On everything over 609,000, correct?
Anything over 609,000. So I would argue that those people that are in that sweet spot of, they're making between $500,000 and $1 million, those are successful entrepreneurs. These are successful small to medium-sized business owners. These are exactly the people that we want to be incentivizing. These are the people that are creating the jobs. They're the ones buying the luxury items that that money goes back into the economy and makes us a prosperous nation. Those are the people that we should be providing tax incentives for, not the people on the Epstein client list.
If you look at traditional economic principles, right? And if you look at where money is rolling, okay, what you're essentially saying is that the government knows how to spend taxpayer money better than the wealthy who got to that point. And so if you look at where does the money of the wealthy go, well, they're investing. And when they invest in other corporations and they buy stock, those corporations then go out and hire and innovate and advance our economy. And when our economy advances, our exports advance, and the nation becomes wealthier. What you're essentially saying when you go, we're going to take more money away from the wealthy, is saying that the government can spend that money better or invest that money better than the individuals that made it. And I think that's 100% completely false, because they got to the point where they are wealthy because they know how to invest money and they know how to use that money wisely. The government, the federal government, has never shown us that they know how to invest money wisely.
Yeah.
If you go to the bottom of this article, I find this interesting. Meanwhile, Mark Goldwine, Senior Policy Director at the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, said it was healthy that lawmakers are entertaining fiscal ideas outside the party norm. He was wary about the push for a tax hike, however. He said, quote unquote, "I'm not a fan of doing things that look fiscally good at the same time that you're doing things that are actually are fiscally bad.
Yeah.
On top of that, I don't think raising tax rates is the best way to raise revenue." Goldwyn said, but with those two things said, I think it is a very healthy move that the GOP kind of is talking about the rates, that rates actually can go in both directions.
Yeah.
I mean, he said something that was very intriguing, but at the same time, I still do disagree with him. I mean, tax rates should not continue to go up.
Yeah, biblical worldview, I think, is downstream from biblical worldview is Austrian economic theory. So I think what we're discussing, Jason, is this paradox between Keynesian economic theory and what I ascribe to, which is Austrian economic theory. And so in short, Jason just described Austrian economic theory, and it's defined as individual choice, market processes, and spontaneous order over government intervention. Ludwig van Mises, the Mises Institute, articulates this well, and I would argue that Austrian economic theory is downstream from a biblical worldview because it places emphasis on individual free will and free choice, and it rejects this idea of uniformity and government intervention. I think God, we're image bearers of our Creator. We're made in the image of God. We're called to be creative. We're called to have free will, to be independent. And in the context of economics, if we're expressing ourselves the way God made us to be, it would require us to accept an Austrian economic theory, which is, I argue, a biblical worldview of economics. And this Keynesianism is globalism, and I think it's an antichrist spirit. So I know this may sound a little, I don't know, full-throated, but it's just kind of important to define what how are we looking at this? Through what lens are we looking at this? Because when you're looking at this through a globalist Keynesian economic theory, you're going to want to increase taxes. You're going to want to give more power to governments. I think we're better off left alone. Like Jason said, the people who are subject to market conditions that actually have to live in the real world and balance a checkbook, and they don't have this unlimited resources available to them, have to be good stewards of what God gave us. God commanded us in Genesis to take dominion and to be good stewards of the earth. And I think that includes, what is created in the economy.
I mean, we're looking at this from a perspective of coming off the heels of Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, which has caught and garnered so much media attention. And this almost does look like, as the article would quote, some cheap political win. Like, basically, this is a way of the populists and the party trying to appeal to a nation that is bought into these socialist ideals because that's how they've been raised and that's how the school system has brought them up. I mean, this is a cheap political win that does nothing for long-term economics.
It's why we need biblical principled leadership.
Jim, what's your take on this?
I don't know. We need more freedom. I don't like government that much. I hate politicians. I hate polititalk and executive speak, and that's what this sounds like, a bunch of frivolous, nonsensical garbage trash. Look, as far as I'm concerned with any of it, taxes should actually stay stagnant or go down, actually, most of the time, because you get more people throwing into the bucket, the pot, whatever you want to call it, with any of this stuff. And no matter what you do with the rich or the higher up, who pays for it? I do. You do. He does. We do.
Forget about it.
We all pay for it because that's what happens. It comes out at the register, up at the counter, up at the DMV, up at the thing. We're not even addressing the real issue here. Government waste and exorbitant spending on stupid garbage nonsense that has nothing to do with anything about me just eating at the kitchen table at the end of the night after a 12-hour day. So the issue isn't being addressed. That's supposed to be the real issue. It's just another another ribbon on a turd, man. It's more the same old stuff with a different verbiage or a different bunch of talk about it. So, and we always pay for it.
I mean, I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, this question, and our answers might be different than the normal general public, but typically when you look at your household budget and you go, hun, we are kind of spending more than we're making. Most families would look at, where can we cut our budget? What can we cut out of our budget? Not how can we extort more money from the public. Now, for entrepreneurs, sometimes we look at it and we go, okay, well, in order to cover those costs, if we do not want to decrease our spending, we need to bring in X amount of new customers. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, it makes a whole lot of sense.
Or a new product or an addition or something extra to bring to the table to have another facet of income come.
Correct. But from a government perspective, that increased revenue is extortion of the public.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at your own household budget and you look at this from a perspective of your own budget, the first thing that you do to have to cut the damage and reduce the damage is to cut your own spending.
Well, this is why I have an issue with like these quote unquote sin taxes too. Because I'm like, look, if someone wants to smoke a cigarette or whatever, leave them alone. Someone wants to have a beer or something, leave them alone. Why are you charging them extra for things? The gun stuff's turned into an extra sin. What is it, 6.5% up or something? The tax?
Yeah, it's not 6%.
It's 6%.
6.5%.
Yeah, why?
Just pull out my receipt.
Yeah, so it's just another thing for us funding our own oppression is how I always verbalize or look at it. It's, hey, here's more of because money's your time. It's a token of your time. And they don't value your time because they're just wasting your money. And you're the one having to go out and do it because your money's just a token of your time. It's, if they're wasting it all the time and they want more and more and more, they don't value you. They don't value your time. And they never look at cutting back because you're right. We budget our things. Every time I run for anything political, what do I say? I'm like, look, I know right from wrong and I could balance a bank account. I know what you're thinking. I'm overqualified for politics. It's fine, just fine.
Yeah, you are overqualified for politics, Jim. But well overqualified. I think that to answer Jason's question, I think the reason why families and entrepreneurs make better decisions than government is because we don't have a printing press. We don't have a Federal Reserve box in our homes or in our businesses where we get to just print funny money out of thin air at the expense of the entire globe. It's the reason why Nixon arguably destroyed this country when he took us off the gold standard, or when in the 1920s we were given a federal income tax and we allowed a central bank to be established. Andrew Jackson's tombstone said, "I killed the bank." It was his biggest accomplishment because in years past, the American political discourse was, do we or do we not have a central bank? And it's because we introduced a central bank, and it's because we have an income tax, and it's because we're not obeying Deuteronomy 25:13-15, which says that we should have fair weights and measures, is the reason why we're in the mess to begin with. And it's going to be order out of chaos. They're going to crash the dollar by design and usher in a central banking digital currency. But I'm digressing already a little bit. We in the real world have to actually make our decisions as they're determined by our resources and by market conditions, whereas the government can just willy-nilly do whatever the hell they want because they don't have those constraints. They get to print money out of thin air.
I mean, I want to bring this up for a second. 1 Timothy 5, starting at verse 3. Honor widows who are really widows, but if any widow has children or grandchildren, let them first learn to show piety at home and to repay their parents, for this is good and acceptable before God. Now she who is really a widow and left alone trusts in God and continues in supplications and prayers night and day. But she who lives in pleasure is dead while she lives. And these things command they may be blameless. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Do not let a widow under 60 years old be taken into the number, and not unless she has been the wife of one man, well reported for good works, if she has brought up children, if she has lodged strangers, if she has washed the saints' feet, if she has relieved the afflicted, if she has diligently followed every good work. But refuse the younger widows, for when they have begun to grow wanton against Christ, they desire to marry, having condemnation because they have cast off their first faith. And besides, they learn to be idle, wandering around from house to house, and not only idle, but also gossips and busybodies, saying things which they ought not. Therefore I desire that the younger widows marry, bear children, manage the house, give no opportunity to the adversary to speak reproachfully, for some have already turned aside after Satan. If any believing man or woman has widows, let them relieve them, and do not let the church be burdened, that it may relieve those who are really widows. I mean, this is just one part of Paul's letter to Timothy that talks about the resources of the church and talks about how the church should be using their funds. So when we talk about wasteful spending and making sure that the dollars that we receive from congregations or the people, the church wanting to pursue ministries that are ungodly and that don't follow God's word and extorting parishioners for that money to be used for those ungodly missions and the ungodly works that they are doing is not of God's will. And so I think we see this similar problem of the fact that, like, we want to do all these things regardless of whether or not they fall in line with what we're supposed to do. And to accomplish it, we have to extort more money from other people to do it. And we see homeless ministries that are just catering to those that won't get off the drugs, that won't get off the alcohol, that don't want to work. We're giving money to those that don't want to work. We have basically relieved children of honoring their parents by providing and paying back what those parents had to pay to raise those children in that family. And when that family becomes in a financial bind, the children should step up. I mean, that is what Paul is telling Timothy.
Yeah, the family should always be taking care of itself and each other. I mean, you look at a lot of people doing business, they're up to pay strangers on time, but when it comes to family stuff, a lot of families, they do what? They make an excuse, well, we're family. And it's like, yeah, but you're up to pay a stranger money when it's due. But if it's a family member you're doing business with, renting from, whatever it might be, borrowing a car, anything going on, or paying them back because they helped you out while you were down. There's always an excuse. Well, we're family. It should be fine. It's like, no, you should be always paying family on time and helping each other in the family because it strengthens the family. It keeps all the effort, the money, and the time in there. And, you know, to his other point earlier, too, we value the money we earn because we had to earn it. You know, it's that thing like I can have a crappy meal, right? Some ramen, some garbage condiments left over from a gas station, have nothing on my table, rusted garbage car. But I made that ramen with my earnings, and it'll taste like crap, and I will eat it. But if someone goes and buys you a meal, you'll pick and choose and get all prissy and picky. You'll watch people. They get all picky. That steak's not done enough. That shrimp's not right. This isn't right. Because they didn't earn it, so it has no value to them. They don't care about it.
Yeah,
So
it goes back to that principle of if you don't work, you don't eat.
yeah, well, there's just earners or takers in the world, and I'm personally getting tired of the takers because it's making it to where you're having to do a lot more earning all the time with everything, and it gets arduous. It's exhausting. It just drains you.
Yeah, and it goes back to the role of government. You know, I think to Jason's point earlier about people are applauding this stuff. It's a cheap political win because we've been conditioned in the public schools to, you know, into class warfare that the rich are bad, therefore they need to get punished, and that type of ideal. If we would have actually had truth spoken in the public school system and educated the next generation that the role of government is to preserve liberty and nothing more, nothing less, then we wouldn't have this problem. We would be looking at the government to, are they preserving liberty or are they taking away liberty? So if they're increasing taxes, that's an infringement on liberty. There's economic freedom when you have money in your pocket. And the more that's taken away, that's the weaker that person is. And so I, you know, would encourage people to ask the question, do we understand what the role of government is?
Well, it's supposed to be infrastructure, security, and then ensuring your rights, your liberties, your freedom, your sovereignty as an individual.
Exactly.
I mean, I know I get mad just about the taxes on what? Oh, did you get a piece of dirt? Well, we're going to tax you every year. Did you get a car? We're going to tax you every year. You're like, dude, I already bought it, man. And especially if you got a used car, you're like, that thing's been paid for the taxes how many times?
Yeah.
And they still do it. And it's too much.
I mean, at the end of the day, we vote with our dollar. I think that's always important to remember, and I think that's come up so many different times when it comes to the conversation about whether or not to buy into an insurance policy that pays for abortions, that pays for transgender care, blah, blah, blah. And on top of that, you look and you look at the broader picture and the fact that basically what the lawmakers are saying when they raise taxes is that we know how to spend your money better than you do.
No.
And that's always been false. And I think the reason, and I saw a stat earlier that the amount of donations to churches is drastically on the decline. And I would argue that it's on the decline because the church has long said, we know how to better spend your money for missions than you do. And people are looking at the church and how they're spending money and going, I don't think that you do.
I'm starting to see in the modern era, and as of now, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, I'm starting to see a lot of cross-referencing with organized religion and modern politics. A lot of the same pollution and corruption and just obscurities and chargings and cost and the term leader. There's no representative, no guide. There's just certain things with it, and this is why I have a lot of problems with a lot of these things, is I see a lot of it, and I see a lot of overlap, too. A lot of the same people, if you like look at things like locally, you'll see you're like, wait a minute here.
Well, and I think we have a lot of...
Am I wrong?
A lot of... You're not wrong. And we have a lot of congregants that just go, you know what, I don't agree with what the church is doing, but I'm not going to leave because I like whatever, the community, blah, blah, blah. I'm just not going to tithe anymore. Or I'm not going to tithe as much. But I don't really think that pushes any of these churches to correct their actions and correct their spending.
Okay, I could see that. I don't know. It seems like the same kind of wastefulness, the same kind of excessive randomness with things. I mean, aren't a lot of churches starting to get onto this
Department of Church Efficiency, DOKE.
Isn't that your thing? You were
We've been trying to push for it. It hasn't
What are you
happened.
calling it again? Doke?
Dokey.
Dokey?
But here's the deal,
No, but
Brad.
I think a lot of them partner up with a lot of the government stuff with like some of the nonprofit charity type thing, like with the homelessness and the feeding things, the feeding the
Feed the hungry.
the feed the hungry stuff and some of these things. And some of these I don't really see a problem with, but I always kind of classify these as what I call politically profitable problems. Nothing gets solved. Somehow there's money exchanged and it doesn't make anything better. And there's big invoices for things that were free or donated, or I took my time or you took your time to package up to help people. And they're like, oh, is all this cost? And you're like, the stuff was free. It was donated. It was given and people helped. Why is there a cost? And why are you getting a grant, which is just tax money from a grantor account? And you're like, just seems polluted.
Well, the whole thing is just messed up. And at the end of the day, if you're looking at this and going like, I don't agree with what the government's doing. Well, if you look at your church and go, I don't agree with what the church is doing, and you leave and you stop tithing, you have an action. If you look at the government and go, I don't agree with what the government is doing, and you stop paying your taxes,
They just take your stuff.
you're going to jail.
And they
like,
take your stuff.
and they're going to just take whatever they want. Like, there's no recourse.
It's because they've
looking
made
at
it
the
to where you're
government.
reliant on them for everything in some facet, shape, level, form, or fashion with everything, because you really can't. I mean, the only way to fight or combat any of it now at this point is be like, all right, cool, we're all going to either work so hard and not do anything and pay all of our bills for 3 months, 6 months, and we're not going to work. We're not doing anything. We're just going to stay home. I threw $5,000 on whatever, this and that, just paid everything up and just screw you. I'm just going to sit here. If we all coordinated like that, could you imagine? That's the only way to fight it.
Yeah.
The modern era, and in a peaceful, non-violent fashion, it's the only way to fight.
If we wanted a true departure from what is presently taking place, there is none, because you don't have recourse against the government.
I think they'd be
And
pretty angry
we
if you have
have-
show up for a couple months. I think within a few weeks they'd be like, "Hey, what do you guys want back?" So you start showing up today.
Well, I don't even think it's showing up. It's a matter of the fact that you have to pay income taxes by law.
I got you, but if you paid everything for 3 months and everybody sat down, I mean, it was just like, "No, I'm cool, dude. I took all my sick days."
I don't think you're ever going to convince the giant.
No, you couldn't
the public
coordinate.
to do it.
I couldn't coordinate everybody to not watch the Super Bowl one year to show how useless that is.
Because the commercials are good, man. Come
Yeah,
on.
well, I mean, you get
They were terrible this year.
were they? I didn't watch it, so I don't know. I never watch it.
Nothing funny.
Hey, I'm just saying, somebody could record it and everybody could watch it later after the time, but just bring the attendance down, the viewage down, and would have a pretty big impact.
All right, we're going to take a brief break. This is Spiritual Insurgency. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hang with us. Welcome back to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo, sitting here with my co-host for the day, Aaron Lujan.
What up?
And just a guy, Jim Miller.
Hello, hello.
All right, here's another interesting article from Fox News from Peter Pinedo and Cameron Arkand. Alex Soros fumes at left-wing climate group over Palestine obsession. What the hell? Alex Soros, the son of notorious billionaire George Soros and chair of the Open Society Foundations, took aim at a left-wing climate group, saying all they do is talk about Palestine. In an interview with New York Magazine in which he detailed his plan to fund efforts to foil the Trump administration's agenda, Soros expressed his frustration with the leftist environmentalist group Sunrise Movement, which is heavily funded by Soros-backed organizations. What the hell did they do, by the way? Soros, who is Jewish, complained. We gave them money, and now all they do is talk about Palestine. It's ridiculous. During the 2020 election season, Sunrise Movement, whose website says it wants to force the government to end the era of fossil fuel elites, received nearly a third of its funding from the Soros-backed Democracy PAC and 1630 Fund, totaling $750,000. Shortly after receiving these funds, Sunrise stepped into a massive controversy sparked by its Washington, D.C. chapter, posting an anti-Semitic statement in which it vowed to boycott any events co-sponsored by quote-unquote Zionist Jewish groups. In an October 2021 statement on future coalition spaces with Zionist organizations, Sunrise DC said it was declining to participate in a DC statehood rally, specifically because of the inclusion of the Jewish Council on Public Affairs, the National Council on Jewish Women, and the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, which is said are all in alignment with and in support of Zionism in the State of Israel. This is so interesting because we're seeing conflicts within both sides of the party over certain actions and certain things that are dividing the party amongst itself. And essentially, like, Soros is almost he's very upset over the Palestinian what's the right word, like
Position,
so what
stance, position.
the Palestinian they care towards the Palestinians,
Empathy
that
towards the
the
Palestinian.
empathy
Yeah.
that this
The
climate group
Yeah.
is showing. And he's going, we funded you because of climate causes. Why is this climate organization care more about Palestine than it does the climate? And now he's up in arms.
I would love to answer that question for Alex. You made your bed, you got to sleep in it now. And what I mean by that is the left is a creation of groups like these globalist groups, right? Like Soros is a figurehead in these globalist organizations that have been a cancer on our country and on this planet. And so they created the left. They're wound up toys. They've been given talking points so they can go set Tesla dealerships on fire and go to museums and deface artwork and vote for socialists. They do whatever they're told. Now, they overplayed their hand because they've told their wound up toy, the left, that you're to champion the cause of global climate change, and you're also supposed to hate Israel and support Palestine. Now, a broken clock tells the time correctly at least one time a day. And so I actually agree with the larger American left in their criticism of Israel, and I have empathy for Palestine. I think what's happening there is, by definition, a genocide, and I would probably find myself in diametric disagreement with the majority of evangelicals in America who I think either self-avowed or without knowing it are what you would call Zionist Christians. You know, they've been co-opted to basically support Israel because they have the wrong definition of what Israel is in Scripture. So I think, Alex, you created this problem for yourself. So you have your wound up toys have it right on it, the issue of Palestine, and you have asked them to do both, and they care more about something that's real and less about something that's fake. Climate change is fake. The genocide in Palestine is real. And I think we could have an opportunity to come together across, traditional political lines, and because there are people on the right, they're being called extreme far right, that are critical of Israel, and there's people on the far left that are critical of Israel. I almost see some hope here.
It's definitely interesting, and for so long, half of the rhetoric on the left is so diametrically in opposition of what they claim to want and believe. For instance, the best one is that we need electric cars. Everybody needs to drive an electric car by 2030, so long as it's not a Tesla.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Right? Like, we need electric vehicles, but the number one leader in electric vehicles around the world, no. We have to treat Elon Musk like he's public enemy number one, even though he's spurred the electric car movement on from the beginning. And so just because Elon Musk has basically abandoned the left because he said, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to just play by your rules because I've got money and because I don't want you attacking me. Now we've got to basically say, okay, well, it's all about electric cars unless it's not Elon Musk.
I like your example. My other favorite left example is they're like, guns are bad, but then they go try to assassinate people with guns. You're like, what? Yeah. It's ridiculous. Look, anything that Soros says is trash anyways, so disregard the guy as even being anything of any substance or any realness or anything, but we have a Frankenstein's monster thing going on here. All right, look, you made a monster. You don't like the monster now. Seems like it's going to snuff you out. That's what's going to happen. You're irrelevant. You shouldn't. It's stupid for any of this kind of stuff. Look, I got disagreements with all kinds of things and stuff, but They made their own monsters. They got to deal with their own monster. A Soros, that's just a fancy rich word for garbage and trash as far as I'm concerned.
I mean,
So-
I'm going to disagree with you on that because I think that's part of the problem is that so many conservatives and Republicans have looked at George Soros and gone like, it's trash and it's irrelevant. It's not irrelevant because he's funding the entire leftist movement. I mean, he has created his own relevance. And to look at it and go like it's not relevant, for us, 100%, like he is completely wrong on almost everything that he's pushed and every agenda that he's pushed.
Oh, yeah.
But to claim that he's not relevant, I think undermines how much power
Bro,
he has
he's
created.
weakened himself and strengthened his creatures. So he's probably funding his own irrelevance at this point right now. So, oh well, too bad, so sad. I don't care for them or any of their stuff anyway. So if they go down with the ship, oh well.
I could see your take on that. I mean, Aaron, what's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, why is Alex Soros more concerned about climate than he is about the issue with Israel? So let's assume Alex is a Zionist. I think it wouldn't be a stretch to assume so. So essentially what he's saying is that he cares less about the country that he is from or that he supports. He cares less about what's happening in the Middle East and more about global climate change, which I find very interesting because I thought that, it's like pick which issue we're going to panic about. It just, to me, it just seems like he's exposing himself for who he is, which is a conniving subverter who's out to destroy this country and the planet. I mean, it just doesn't sit well when it's like they're making arguments that sometimes contradict themselves. Because like one day it's, we're in biblical times. The world is going to end if we don't, give billions of dollars to Israel. And then the next minute it's, well, we're all going to die and the world's coming to an end if we don't, give carbon taxes to Al Gore to save the planet. It's not a clear message. Like, what is the existential threat? You're screaming about both issues all the time. And then now it's like, now you're saying, well, Israel doesn't matter anymore because this money that we're giving them, they're only using it to talk about Palestine. I don't know if I'm making sense or not. I'm not making sense to myself.
The whole thing doesn't make sense.
It's hard to make sense of a topic.
That makes
doesn't
sense.
make sense. I think the only part that makes sense is this group is supposed to be a climate group, though, right?
Yes, they're supposed to be a
So the
climate
only sound thing with any of it is him going, it's a climate group, not talking about climate. That is the only rational bit, the only thing that's got any kind of sense to it. The rest is just, it's going to give you a migraine.
All right, so we've got another story. This one is interesting because the Colorado Republican Party got into some very hot water over not maintaining neutrality during the primary. And we're seeing the story break out. DNC chair says David Hogg has to make a decision on his party leadership. Democrat National Committee Chair Ken Martin basically said no DNC officer should ever attempt to influence the outcome of a primary election, whether on behalf of an incumbent or a challenger. The recently elected National Party chair said during a conference call with reporters on Thursday. Martin's comments were directed at DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, who last week pledged to shell out $20 million through his outside political group, Leaders We Deserve, to primary challenge some older Democrats in blue districts. We have seen, and we continue to see, that the Democrats in party leadership are trying to move the party left, or at least the more grassroots part of the Democrat Party wants to move it further left, just like the grassroots party portion of the party and the Republican Party want to move right with more of like a Trump-esque style Republican platform. And there's issues because party leadership, who the parties, the Democrat and the Republican Party, have supposed to be neutral during the primary elections. They're not supposed to favor one candidate over another so that they can use their funds and their leverage in a general election, not in a primary. So they shouldn't show favoritism. And that's not, I'm just telling you what it is. I'm not talking about my opinion on the whole thing because I actually don't necessarily have a problem with holding people that want to run for office in a party to the platform that the party abides by, Republican or Democrat. Like, go for it. Like, I agree with it on the Republican side. I could see why you'd want to do it on the Democrat side. What's really interesting, I think, moreover, is the fact that David Hogg, if you recall, he was the senior at Parkland High School during the shooting, and then he magically appeared at every other school shooting afterwards as the media's favorite toy to put in front of the camera during school shootings, is now the vice chair of the Democrat National Party. And when you look at the fact that somehow he has $20 million sitting in outside political groups, I mean, how did David Hogg get to this point? His dad, if I recall, is an FBI agent that gave a presentation to Parkland High School in the weeks leading up to the massacre at Parkland High School. Just some interesting conspiracy notes to put in there.
Sure.
But Aaron, what's your thoughts on this?
David Hogg needs to hit the gym, bro. I don't think that guy's ever lifted once in his life.
Skips leg day.
He skips upper body day.
Skips whole body day.
I think the Democrat Party is in an identity crisis. I don't think they're like trans-political. They're like political they-thems. Like, are you guys socialists under Bernie Sanders? Are you guys, old school Kennedy Democrats that look like Republicans of 2008? Are you guys these self-described moderates, whatever mediocrity means in political terms? Are they, BLM, far left vigilantes with, communist fists raised? Are they, I don't know who they are. I don't think they know who they are.
They're a problem.
I think they have a they-them problem. I think they're in disarray. Jim's loving this right now.
What, man? Trans-political?
I mean,
It's Pat. It's so political of Pat.
So I think this is also critical because a couple weeks ago we talked about the influence of youth. You guys are still laughing. We talked about the influence of youth in our culture and the shifting of cultural views by our youth. David Hogg is 25 years old, turned 25 this month.
Happy birthday,
he's
Dave.
been used. Happy birthday, David Hogg, if you're ever watching this, which you're probably not.
David.
All right.
Your name sounds like something from a porno.
So David Hogg was used as a teenager to influence the youth in this anti-gun movement. Greta was a teenager that was used to influence youth in the culture movement. They're using teenagers to paint this picture of a culture that they want to exist, a culture without guns, a culture focused on the climate, a culture that's pro-choice.
John Lennon
15-minute cities, drugs everywhere. Like, this is the agenda that they want to push, and they're doing it through kids, preaching to kids, and it's only getting worse with kid influencers over TikTok. Like, that's what's happening. This is what is happening in our country. If you want to turn a blind eye, go ahead. I'm just telling you what's happening. If you want to
don't
pretend that it doesn't happen, go for it. But that's what's happening.
Do not turn a blind eye. That makes you complacent, and then you're complicit to all the damn problems going on. That's ridiculous. Do not turn a blind eye.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm just saying.
You're right. You do this stuff. So when I talk to some of my kids' friends or my nieces and nephews' friends, I'm not gonna lie. Dumbest generation I think I've been around, and I'm in my mid-40s now. So, but when you start telling them like, hey, no, you can do this. Well, I thought the government was gonna do it. It's like a big die of like what? What do you mean? And I'm like, you don't need a system or a setup or a group to live your life. You can make your own decisions. You can build a car. You can learn how to do whatever you want or learn how to work that. Well, I thought I had to go to this course or that course or be part of this group or that group, or I thought the government only could tell me and it's like, no, you get to decide that. It's almost, I don't know how to explain it or articulate it. It's like mind altering for them. It's like a whole new reality's been done. It's like the Wizard of Oz when they pull the curtain back and they're like, oh, it's just a dude. And you're like,
It's Colonel Sanders.
yeah, you're like, I'd like to know what your 12 herbs and spices are.
I love your chicken, sir.
I love your chicken, sir. I'm the Wizard of Oz. Great, good times.
Singer looking good.
Yeah, I do like your thing though, trans-political.
Yeah.
We're gonna use that for everything.
The
now.
they-thems.
Well, and this push from the Democrat Party, Senator Durbin announces retirement as age becomes toxic issue for the party. I mean, you got David Hogg here trying to usher in the next generation of young Democrats to sit in their chairs for an extended period of time and continue to basically push this country further left and continue down that nightmare that we have.
Well, I want to add to this conversation because Fox News recently had a interesting article that covers this matter, and if my internet was a little bit faster, I'd be a little bit smoother. But essentially, resistance Democrats embrace combative, profanity-laced dark woke rebrand to combat Trump. So essentially, the more profane, the more aggressive they become, the more effective that they may be, is what their Democrats are experimenting with.
The only thing that we're missing is a traditional parliamentary fight, like giant mob fights that break out, or that used to break out on the British parliamentary floor. I mean, like, I would love to see some fist fights, just put up Chuck Schumer and,
put up, see that guy get punched in the throat.
Dan West,
Urban against against some of these younger Republican military guys. Like, I didn't want to see that fight.
Well, we're innovating combative martial arts, right? I mean, we got the slapping, we have bare knuckle fighting. Now let's do the political octagon.
Start making duel standard again.
Yeah.
Cassius Clay was the greatest duelist ever.
I don't know if we can trust this, because I think Aaron still wants to bring back hobo fights.
No, I don't.
No,
I don't. That was actually out of my that's from San Diego. That was not fun. But hashtag dark woke refers to an online meme that gained popularity in January amid President Trump's inauguration. Left-leaning ex-users shared jokes and memes delighting or wishing for the suffering of Trump supporters. Party leaders may be accepting crass and rude attitude in the wake of Donald Trump's election. So I don't know, but that just screams desperation. It screams it reminds me of the scared cat. When they're backed up into a corner, they just become aggressive because they have no other option. Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Dark woke? Is that?
I don't know. I just wish they'd put this kind of effort against, like, pedophilia or something. You know what I mean? Like, something real. Do something real with all this anger and rage. Oh, no, somebody made a different decision to me. I hate them. It's the dumbest crap I ever heard. That's the whole point of freedom. Me and you don't agree on everything. Me and you don't agree on everything. People out there listening to right now don't agree with everything that any of us are saying. They have other viewpoints, and that's fine. That's the whole point of freedom. They don't put any of this anger or rage towards any real cause that could really have any effect in any real kind of facet or something. They just get mad because someone made a different decision. You know what? If you want to change people's minds, get smarter. Have better ideas then. Be a better person. Anything or something along them lines. They don't want to improve. They just want to blame everybody else for the reasons that they don't do good. That's dumb. It's your fault. I'm one of the few people in the world that no matter what happens with me, it's always my fault. Always my fault. Because my morals, values, and ethics. Somebody vandalized something or tried to hurt me or threatens to kill me, that's my fault because of how I am. That's fine. Just fine. Start blaming yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't articulate your values, if you can't articulate your ideas in a persuasive manner that appeals to people's reason and logic, then you don't have a good idea. So everything else that they do other than articulate their position in a way that people can respect is just an admission of the fact that they don't have an argument. They don't have a point. They're not contributing anything of value. If you have to scream and yell and commit acts of violence and appeal to emotion and appeal to fear, do anything else other than just peacefully and calmly appeal to people's reason and logic, you're completely bankrupt with ideas.
Well, that's why they like so much government, because then they force some stupid law to make you do their stupid crap that doesn't make any damn sense.
I mean, what we're trying to do on Spiritual Insurgency is comment on the news and comment on cultural trends through a biblical worldview. So we're going to provide biblical support. We're going to provide scripture, and everything comes under the authority of gospel when it pertains to culture and current events. That, to me, is the best way to articulate our argument. Now, you can end up disagreeing with it. I mean, there's going to be people who will reject God, who will reject the Bible. That's fine. You have the free will to do so. But I think what we're doing is respectable, unlike our friends across the aisle.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I just have been perplexed by the rest of the information on this Wikipedia article from David Hogg. I mean, he's the co-founder of Good Pillow.
Yeah, he just sounds like a guy who's $20.
Is that a competitor? Is that a competitor to Mr. Pillow?
My Pillow, you mean? Yeah, like good pillow.
My
I
Pillow,
looked at
yeah.
like he just looked at it and was like, well, the My Pillow guy, that's how he's raising money.
If I change it 10%, it's different. The name in the beginning of it is different. It's a new product.
It's good pillow. It's good pillow.
Pillow, not
It's
a
good
my
pillow.
pillow. It'll never be your pillow. It's our pillow.
They them pillow.
David Hogg graduating from Harvard University.
They pillow.
Their pillow.
Their pillow.
Yeah, it's just it's an intriguing circumstance that we live in.
too, you know.
They're talking about
It's-
transgendered pillows.
Trans pillows.
Trans
Deep
pillows?
pockets too.
What does a trans pillow do?
Becomes a blanket and at whim.
It's a pillow for trannies.
It still looks the same. You
Well, that's fun stuff. Aaron, what you got for us?
Nothing.
Nothing.
just-
Am I supposed to have a news article lined up?
No, it's okay. So we're seeing the Ukrainian and the Russian war.
Sorry.
Peace deals have kind of been all over the place this week. We have a war that's broken out, or a conflict that's broken out between India and Pakistan.
Oh.
And no, it's not a cricket match. And then on top of that, India earlier this week finalizing a trade deal with the United States. India will no longer charge a tariff on any products imported from the United States, and the United States will do the same, not charging anything for imports from India.
You mean deals are being made?
Deals are being made.
Wow.
And here's the deal. I mean, the United States is the second biggest exporter in the world. And so we've received a ton of comments on social media from our different shorts and stuff that we put out. And people are going, well, the United States is just a consumer country. Yes, the United States is the number one importer in the world, but we are the number two exporter in the world. We are still producing goods that are going to other countries. And our imports, because they're like, well, we're importing goods from countries with GDPs that are significantly low. No, we're not. We're importing from countries like Japan, South Korea, European countries, China. Their GDP is not ridiculously low.
China.
It's not Zimbabwe, right? We are the number one importer and the number two exporter in the world. Like, we need these trade deals because it will increase United States manufacturing. Is it going to take a short-term hit on the U.S. economy? Yes, it will. There's confidence issues amongst investors. They're not confident about how this whole thing is going to play out. When confidence drops, investing drops.
Things
You always get lower
consumers to get
confidence. Well, yeah, but when consumer confidence drops, people stop purchasing.
But what's the old saying? This too shall pass. Relax. It's going to be fine. Let the trade deals start happening. Everybody's talking about it, at least. The whole world's talking about trade deals and tariffs. Like, but what? That's the first time of everybody coming to the table together to try to make it economically sound for everybody. So I think it's going to turn out being fine in the end, but I think it's always going to be arduous and just kind of, dismal here and there, and bad things happening or things go up or down. It's fine.
Well, in fairness to President Trump, he campaigned on renegotiating bad trade deals, and he's being good on his word right now. So respect to Trump for that. But the problem that I have with this conversation is that we talk about trade deals and tariffs in a vacuum, as if that's the only topic that is going to improve our economic situation. We would be remiss if we didn't discuss government spending. We'd be remiss if we didn't discuss the devaluation of the dollar. If we would be remiss if we weren't talking about tax incentives domestically to encourage investment in the U.S., giving, for example, tax breaks to people to start businesses in the United States.
And don't forget your favorite topic of conversation, the Fed, which the leader of the Fed cannot just be replaced by the president. He has to serve out his term. But the Fed has not cut interest rates drastically like they should have to spur on the economy and to improve the economic outlook of Americans.
And we haven't cut the Fed. Hashtag end the Fed.
Yeah, we do need to end the Fed. I just don't see that happening. But
Right. But these are the real solutions, and that's why I have a problem with this conversation.
Well, there's lots of spokes on that wheel, so yeah, every spoke should be addressed.
Every spoke should be addressed.
But
we're talking
one
about
of them being addressed is still good. You got to give it that.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's a half-baked conversation.
Well, yeah, there's hundreds of spokes
it's-
on here.
it's this-
but at least one's being addressed is all I'm saying with it.
yeah, it's this idea that one piece
Are you
makes
gonna
up the
fix it?
whole.
Yeah, no.
which it doesn't. I mean, the economy is not this, like Aaron said, this vacuum where one thing impacts the whole thing. No, it's a multitude of different things that are impacting the economy. And our exports are extremely important. And as tariffs decrease, exports tend to increase and manufacturing increases, which drives more money into Americans' pockets and into businesses, which then increases spending, which increases the amount of tax revenue that the government's getting from sales tax and from employment tax. I mean, the whole thing is a giant secular event.
Funding your own oppression.
Did you say testicular event?
Testicular event?
Secular.
What does David Hogg say about testicular events?
Circular. Got it. Circular, that was the word.
Circular?
Circular event?
I was going with cyclical.
Cyclical.
Very, very good.
Nice. This
Yeah.
is good.
I don't even know what you said anymore.
I don't even know what we're talking about.
Sorry. Let's refer to Alex Soros and see what he thinks about what
No,
you just said.
And it's going to get revealed later this week that Alex Soros is actually Alex Jones.
Oh.
That would be crazy.
I mean,
It's just a suited in. He's
mask.
like, there it is. The frogs are gay. And then he's like, Shaggy's kidding. You're all.
sometimes when you record as much content as we've recorded today,
We're off the rails.
it just kind of goes south.
It's over. The show's over, guys. The rest of the show's just completely has no value, just other than
Well, it's okay because we only have a minute and a half left. So, Aaron, closing thoughts.
This has been a lot of fun. If you guys are listening right now on 670 AM, go to Rumble, go to YouTube, look up Full Armor Media, look up Spiritual Insurgency. You can see Mr. Lupo's glorious red beard and my cool blazers and Jim Miller's amazing hat. And everything is visual. So if you're listening to us on the radio, check us out on the Rumbles and the YouTubes. It's pretty fun.
Jim, closing thoughts.
I really just get done doing work outside and then pop in and do all this stuff. But look, the number one thing is to make sure you have as much freedom as possible and get rid of all this modern era of feedom. F-E-E-D-U-M-B has no place with anything we're doing nowadays.
I 100% agree, but I think freedom is D-U-M-B.
It is D-U-M-B, yeah.
Not D-O-M-B.
F-E-E-D-U-M-B.
But, ultimately, at the end of the day, catch us every day. Spiritual Insurgency on Rumble or YouTube. During the weekday, we're on at 3 p.m. We go for like 10 to 30 minutes. It just depends on the news cycle. But catch us there, like and subscribe, and share all of our content. Thanks for joining us, and God bless.